talking about? All right, hold on one second.
Wait, show it again.
I listened to the other podcast and they were very like lighthearted. So I was like, they won't mind that I am at the staircase in Soho House, the only quiet place at Soho House.
Actually, yeah, now I'm mad. Now we're not doing it. You get out of that staircase.
I was like, I'm sorry.
One second. All right.
I'm in my trash department. So.
I wanted to do it in my apartment and like I had the lighting set up and all that, and then they're doing like this construction. I think someone paid money to keep this construction going because normally at 6 p.m. it ends. Not this construction.
They're like, so we can't wait anymore.
All right, I'm gonna start. Are you good to go?
Yeah, great.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna start. Her and I'll probably talk like just a couple of minutes, and then we'll introduce you if that's okay.
Of course, whatever you guys need.
That works. Okay, hold on. Let me press record. You know, like the viejo that I am. Let me make sure.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, please, this would be so much fun. Hold on. Sorry, I missed you during the Super Bowl. Okay, hold on. Wait, here we go.
Okay.
See. Well, hello. Welcome to Kill the Bottle Podcast. Eddie's Mora, aka the Yum Yum Foodie. Megan is giving me like a bitter face right now, but I think it's because she drank something nasty. As always, Señorita Megan, how are you, Megan?
I'm terrible, Eddie.
Well, you know, I don't want to be the person that burst the bubble, but why are you terrible, Megs?
I tested positive for COVID.
No.
The anti-COVID queen has tested twice now, and I tested positive for COVID. So.
Yeah, but you also told me you texted me this morning and you said you had the worst cold ever, and it was like obviously you don't sound like yourself. But like I don't know how like an hour and a half later is when I get the info, the COVID message from you. And I mean, look, first of all, I'm glad you're doing okay. I'm glad I don't know are you feeling better than you were this morning or about the same or what?
Yeah, last night I had a headache. Now I'm fine. Everything's fine. I can even sing. Hey.
Okay, no, I believe you. I don't know because you said
I'll sing this whole really podcast, Eddie.
No, please don't do that. Please don't do that. The funniest part is when you texted me this morning that I was like, oh my God. First of all, it's a miracle you hadn't gotten it by now. So, I know.
How has this happened to me? I've traveled everywhere. I've made out with so many random strangers. I've had tons of one night stands. How have I not gotten COVID yet? But now I get COVID.
Megan, you're an anomaly. For real. You are the Terminator. I always tell people you're like the LeBron James of this virus because it just like for some reason hadn't gotten to you. And then finally, like this year, LeBron got hurt and the Lakers are not in the playoffs. So, that today, you got LeBron. You got LeBron. So it just finally caught up with you.
To be real, I did go to a giant freaking like dance party club on Sunday thinking I was immune.
I think that's what we call that. How many phone calls have you had to make today? Because I didn't even, I got a text, thank God. Because I was ready for Megan to come over and like do the show here in the studio like we normally do. But no phone calls today. Nobody. You haven't seen anybody.
No.
That you felt compelled. Care. You don't care anymore. That's it. You're done.
I kind of felt relieved because I was going to go like deliver food and I was going to have to travel all the way to your place, which is a pain in the ass drive. And now I'm just like, yay. Oh
yeah. It's a pain in the ass drive to something that's helped, like that's been so lovely and fulfilling to your life, Megan. Thanks. Good times.
Just the drive.
Guys out there, if you ever want Megan to be nice to you, just be a dick to her. Do nothing for her. But if you're like a good friend to Megan, this is what you get. So let's just keep that, let's just keep that out there in the open. Absolutely. And I still love you for it. Megan, I want to ask your thoughts on something before we bring our guest on.
You had something to tell me. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to get your thoughts on this because I love the dinner party, the go hang out for your friend's birthday dinner, that whole vibe, right?
Right.
But yesterday I had the dinner was fine. It was okay. Let's be honest. The food wasn't like the best thing I've ever had, but considering how much it cost. But go to a dinner party, the whole nine. It's a birthday thing. I'm so happy to see, my friend for their birthday, blah, blah, blah. And, when it's the birthday thing, I usually expect, I'm like, okay, look, we're going to pay for the birthday girl, the birthday boy. They're not paying for dinner tonight. We're going to split their cost amongst everybody else. But at the end of that motherfucking bill, when they all of a sudden, you have that schmuck that sat in the corner that had like 6 drinks. You had this fuckhead over there that bought like 2 desserts and had 6 other drinks. And then you have Eddie, who had 1 drink because he has to travel to Israel on Thursday and he's trying to take it easy. And then I get hit with a $260 fucking bill. 260.
Did you say something?
No, I didn't say anything yesterday. I just did. I was not ready for it. I was just like, my meter was about to expire on Sunset, which if any of these folks that live in LA, whenever your meter expires on Sunset by the Comedy Store, you haul ass to that car because they're just chomping at the bit to give you a ticket or tow your fucking car. So I said, you know what? I don't want the ticket. I don't want to get towed. What are your feelings about that splitting of the check at the end? Like, oh my God, we'll just split it with everybody. How do you feel about that? Because I was not happy. Let's just say that.
Well, you talk about it before. That's one thing. But when we do that, I hate that because it makes me feel like I can't order what I want, because I would be the jerk that orders the 50 drinks, but I'm also the jerk that's aware of that. So I'd be like, no, here, like shit. I'll tip or I'll pay extra. I'll volunteer that. But usually I want to do a separate check, and I kind of am pushy about it because I don't want to sit there and feel like I'm holding back. But clearly that person didn't care.
You're also like, the one thing you're not Megan the Mess about is being generous when it comes to tipping and like going to a restaurant. Like, you are like a great customer. Let's just say that. And when it comes to going out with friends and splitting bill and all the fuss, like Megan is on top of that shit. So anyway, I just had to get.
I have a suggestion. I know I'm your guest, and I'm not supposed to be right now.
Bring it, Dory. I'm going to introduce you in a second.
You always have to bring cash, and you do what you think it's fair. Leave the cash and leave. It's like, this is what I consumed. Boom, bye.
Yeah,
I like that.
You know what? That right there is somebody who was raised in Miami. That right there is like
Honestly.
a total Miami move. So if you heard a voice from the heavens, not only is this lovely, elegant voice, but our guest today on Kill the Bottle podcast is a lovely lady that I met. You know what the funny part is like, because of COVID time, I have no idea how long ago it was. But it was not that long ago. But
COVID times are like times that are like, they're so hard that then you get to have COVID times that are like dog years. It's like times 7.
Is. It's almost like I call it like Price is Right prices. Like, there's no way that washing machine costs $1,000 on Price is Right, guys. It's this exaggeration of time that you just can't really kind of figure out. So anyway, I met our guest a few months ago, let's say, at this really lovely dinner that was hosted by what we're sipping right now on Kill the Bottle podcast. Well, hopefully you're not drinking, Megan.
Tonight. I am. I have some whiskey. That's the nasty face I was making.
And I'm like, Megan's not gonna drink. Okay, well, whatever. I am drinking a rum, a rum called Zacapa rum. It's a 23-year Solara. Solara process, guys, it's not that intricate of a process, but it could be a little bit confusing. Essentially, the age on the bottle is gonna let you know the oldest of that particular, in this case, rum. Usually it's done with rum. I've never really seen a Solara whiskey. Not to say it doesn't exist. But essentially, it's a blend of several different ages of that particular spirit. In this case, it's rum Zacapa. But the number that's on the bottle is the oldest amount of spirit that's going to be in there. So this is a Gran Reserva 23. This was kind of like my go-to back in the day in Miami. I'm not going to lie. Zacapa 23 was like it's also my cruise ship premium rum. When it's on the premium package on the cruise ship, I'm like, hell yeah.
I love that.
Zacapa on the rocks at like 10 a.m. by the pool.
Oh, yeah.
I want to welcome the voice from the heavens, Chef Grace Ramirez. Hello, Grace.
Hi. Thank you guys for having me, Megan. I'm sorry you have COVID right now, but I think so I was the OG. Like, I had COVID back in the days, and I've had it twice, and I feel like now you're trending because you have COVID now.
Oof. I had it
which
once.
is a very kind of which honestly, it's very common that people are having it right now. People just don't like to say anything.
I thought I was gonna be the one that doesn't get it, but oh well, it's my fault.
Isn't that the irony? Because 2 years ago we didn't know. and it was definitely a lot stronger than the strain that we're getting now. And it was some scary shit. And when I had it in December 2020, it was not like cough a little bit and a headache. I was fucking miserable. I had like oxygen measurement on my finger. Like it was not fun. So
yeah, and it was very
scary after you've been vaccinated and you're good. Like be glad, Megs. Like considering, like you said, the amount of makeout sessions you've had, not only with people but microphones, puppies, like all of the above. That you like now is when you got it. So you're in good hands.
I'm definitely feeling the fog you're talking about. I was trying to play a game on my phone and I like couldn't figure it out, like Sudoku. Like I couldn't figure out Sudoku, and that's like a game I'm good at. So I'm definitely feeling foggy.
Well, and I'm hoping for you that it's only like a short term, because I mean it's been 2 years for me, and I still have COVID brain fog for certain things. Like my mind just is not as quick or as sharp about certain things as it would have been before. So, you know, I can no longer play like movie trivia. I can't. It's like Jeopardy is a bitch for me now. I used to love.
He's just making excuses for his non-intelligence.
Is that what I'm doing? Is that what I'm doing?
Yes, Grace, Chef. What was your COVID experience like?
It's been 2 times that it's been rough for me. Yeah, I had it in March. You know, I was like coming back from Rwanda, volunteering at a job. And you know, I remember I had a layover in Qatar of 8 hours. You know, you're coming from a volunteering trip, so you're very inspired and your heart is full of joy. And I remember sitting in Qatar for 8 hours, and you know, the news were on saying a pandemic is kicking off, and I remember sitting there and I was sipping some Zacapa at that lounge. and
very on brand.
And I'm like, there is no way I'm not going to be able to get this virus here, because there were all these planes landing from China. I had 8 hours in Qatar and I had no mask. So I knew that I was in danger, and I did had the virus back then. It was very scary, and I have asthma, so it was full on. It was very full on, and like it was a lot of having to call my cousin in Spain, who had been dealing with the virus for 2 more weeks than us. He goes, do not go to the hospital. Whatever you do, this is how you need to treat it. And I had friends in the right places that send me oxygen and send me a nebulizer, and I was able to battle it the best way I could. And I remember having a dream. I took it very like very Latino, no, you know. I had a dream with my grandma. She goes, go back to the basics, go back to the basics. So I hit it with all the home remedies I could every moment.
Sopa de pollo.
La sopa de pollo. I had caldos, every bone broth that I could find and I could make. I was doing this menjurjes full on with garlic mashed in a mortero with in a mortal and pesto with manuka honey, you know, very high grade manuka honey with the ginger, lemon, and garlic menjurjes, and I was having a lot of that and doing all my nebulizers and all my stuff. And I have to say there were some scary moments. Like I was like literally writing my will.
Oh no.
Like I was like, I don't know. They were nice, and I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to survive this thing that feels very terrible. And I just had it a month ago again, and it wasn't pretty either, even though I have 3 vaccines later. So yeah, you know, I think this virus has taught us a lot, and it's definitely shaped the last 2 years of where I stand as a humanitarian and activist, as a chef. You know, I worked with World Central Kitchen for the past 2 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it didn't scare you enough to not go serve hundreds and thousands of meals, correct?
It gave me more strength, you know, because I knew I had it, and I knew that for 3 months I was going to be immune to this virus. So it was kind of like the thing to do, serve the community and serve my industry, you know, and it was, yeah, I feel like a little bit of a superhero. I survived this thing, and now I can go out and give to my community and my people in New York, which I love so much. For those of you who weren't listening, I live in in an apartment, and they're doing construction, and I don't know who they're paying, but they're doing construction till very late of the night.
You know, they're building a sex dungeon in your neighbor's apartment.
Yeah,
that's what I think it is. They're putting in swings, like it's the whole deal.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening, but I feel so bad because it's so loud till very late. And I was like, where am I going to record this that it's quiet? So I am sitting in a staircase in Soho House. So forgive me if it's somehow loud in the back at some point.
There are worse staircases you could be sitting in than Soho House in New York City.
It's true.
You know? Now, but here's like which Soho House in New York City? Are you down?
Meatpacking.
Ah, okay, got it. You see, because that New York City not only has one in Soho, but they have, you know,
Ludlow and yeah, it's Ludlow and Dumbo.
Yeah, so it's funny because you heard us talking about, you know, the split check, and the split check event yesterday was not at Soho House, but it was at a similar concept of a place, you know, membership place, and yeah,
those are hard.
It was one of those. I was like,
they bill you hard with those, but you know what? Always. I say this to everyone. I meant to always carry cash, guys, because you can get out of a situation very fast.
Thing is, a lot of places now, I mean, your friends will take cash, but a lot of places now, like, you can't even pay with cash. And they used to say,
it doesn't matter. You Venmo, you say, here's my cash, you take care of it. They have the cash. They can do whatever they want. But no.
You said obviously you do some work with World Central Kitchen. Where does the story start for you as far as wanting to be a chef?
Well, I want to talk for a second about World Central Kitchen because they're like my family, you know. And the documentary, which is very relevant right now, We Feed People. It's coming out in Nat Geo, so I'm gonna just plug it. And it's about Jose and,
as you should,
and World Central Kitchen, because
he's a special guy.
People have to see the work he's done and we've done, and I am in for a whole 40 seconds, which was amazing.
That's awesome. Look, anytime you can do anything with Jose Andres that's recorded for 40 seconds is a special time.
You take it, yeah. And it's gonna be airing in Geo, and last week we had the premiere, and you know, it's looking back into what that organization has done. And I started with them in Puerto Rico. You know, I went with them to Puerto Rico, to Maria, then to the Bahamas after Dorian, and then in the Venezuela and Colombian border, and I helped set up the Venezuela operation. And then with COVID-19, you know, I helped lead the initiative here in New York. And what they do is remarkable. And you know, we're a chef relief team, and I think that is first and foremost my greatest passion. But I became a chef after working for Bobby Flay in Throwdown, directing his shows. And
you were a TV director.
Yeah, I used to work first in Nickelodeon, then MTV, then the Food Network, and I became in love with the industry. And I think that I'm sure you guys know this, like this industry either calls you or not. Either you're meant for it or you're not. And I remember sitting, you know, at a bar and talking to chefs and being in a kitchen. I was like, I belong here. You know, it was hard because I was a career changer, and I was like, I can become a chef now. I'm still paying for debts for school, you know, working like as a TV producer. How am I going to become a chef now? But I think that after doing MasterChef US for, you know, the first one and competing and it was really bad for me. But I remember Gordon Ramsay saying you should go to culinary school and come back. And that's where I got the strength to do culinary school. And it was the best thing that I could have done. I applied for a scholarship for the French Culinary Institute, which it was a culinary institute that, you know, Bobby Flay went to and David Chang went to. And I said, I'm going to do this because this is what I want to do. But it was very hard. Is that the one that's in New York?
Is that the one that was in New York that's no longer, that closed? Yeah. Yeah, I remember I ate lunch. Lunch there one time in the little corner window. Yeah. And it was like one of the most, you know, because when students are cooking, they're like cooking their asses off. They're trying like extra hard. And I remember having just the most lovely meal.
And very cheap.
Oh, for the level of food that it was. Oh my God. It was out of control. It was so good.
Yeah.
I had this like beautiful meringue. I was like, this is great. this person is going to charge me 10 times as much when they open their own restaurant in a few years.
100%. That was the beauty of the French Culinary Institute. You know, we had the restaurant downstairs that we got to cook for real people. It was like the best kept secret that you get to have like an amazing meal. I think it was $40 for like a 5 or 6 course meal that was cooked by students. But like you were saying, we were proving ourselves. So it was very special. But we're glad that we had that experience of being able to serve at a quote unquote restaurant like atmosphere for our last semester. That it taught us kind of like the speed and what it was to serve New York. It was incredible. I mean, we were all very sad when it closed due to you know, the pandemic, but it lives in our heart because it was a great place to have studied at.
But did you ever cook as a kid, or did you always want to be in television production? Because I never wanted to cook as a kid, and now I cook a lot.
You know what?
I was trying to like figure out where that flips for people.
I think that we have very similar stories in the sense of like, you know, our abuelas used to cook and everything revolved around food. But our abuelas didn't want us in their kitchen, right? It was like, no, I got this. Tú no haces nada.
Pretty much. Yep. Go outside and play sports.
Yeah, exactly. It was kind of like this thing where you grew up around food and around the kitchen, but grandmas wanted to, that's the way they show love. So they didn't want you to be cooking. They didn't want you helping them. It was their way of showing love and appreciation, but you still felt how special it was to cook and bring people together. So I think that for me was it. Like the crazy thing was that my grandmother was a great cook and my grandfather was a great cook. And it was very weird because he's like, you know, a former general for the army of Venezuela. So, you know, but él es maracucho. He's from this part of Venezuela that people love to eat. So I grew up seeing them cooking. And when I left back, because I'm from Miami, I was born there. But when I went back to Miami to go to university, I missed that so much, that feeling home of cooking and bringing people together. So I started cooking for my peers at MTV and Nickelodeon because we were all kind of like a little homesick because there's people from Peru, Argentina, Chile, Venezuela, Colombia. And my way of showing appreciation for them and bringing them together was cooking. So I started experimenting little by little, and then I fell in love with it.
Was that MTV Miami, like MTV Latino?
Latino, yeah.
Lincoln Road?
Exactly, 1111 Lincoln Road, yeah. That's where I started my career. I was 19 years old, and I was there as a production assistant first in Nickelodeon. And then, you know, I moved over to the MTV side, and then I moved to New York to launch MTV Tres, which was for, you know, Hispanic, US Hispanic. And then I moved to the Food Network. So that's been kind of my career path. But MTV has, you know, and Nickelodeon kind of shaped what it was as a professional.
Yeah, I can't remember which came first, if it was MTV Tres or Mundos, but they were, you know, very, you know, Latino-centric channels. Yeah. Mundos being Telemundo NBC, and obviously MTV Tres being MTV.
Mundos was first, yeah.
Mundo, okay, yeah. So I worked for Mundos. I was a talk show host on Mundos, year 2 of their existence. So anyway, it's just funny. And I'm sure you and I have crossed paths before, but Megan was making faces at me when
I didn't know these existed, these MTVs. What are you talking about?
These darn fandaggled MTV channels.
MTV white German people TV?
No, that's just regular MTV is MTV white.
Oh, I made a face at you when you're like, I cook a lot, and I held back saying pork. But
you can say pork. Cubans cook a lot of pork, okay, and we love. I mean, the irony is I love pigs and I think they're so fucking cute. So I never want to see a pig. I never want to touch a pig. I love seeing like little pig videos on Instagram, but I will eat the fuck out of a pig. I'm a walking contradiction. I can't help it. I'm sorry. I can't.
The second thing I was going to get your guys' opinion on, I just had my first Hispanic family experience. I went to a full like Mexican family, had me over on Mother's Day. And it was very different from my experience. And yeah, you're right. Mom doesn't stop. I tried to go serve myself because she's like, oh, let me get you something to eat. And I followed her. She's like, sit down, like go sit down. And it's like moving around and serving you. And she made my burger for me. Like she put on like it. I was what? My mom would have been like, "Go fuck yourself! Like, go make your own burger." So it's a very inclusive culture.
Oh, yeah, and that's the thing. My own dishes.
Yeah, exactly. That is.
I go wash my own dishes. I'm like, yeah.
That is the thing about Latin families. You want to show your love and appreciation to someone by serving them, and I think that is, and this is why we Latinos do so well in the hospitality industry, because it's a culture of service. It is.
Yeah, she didn't stop moving.
You don't find it shameful to serve. You find it actually joyful and loving to serve, and I think that's something that is very beautiful in a culture of, if I'm serving you, I'm loving you and I'm showing you my love and appreciation. And I think that is why again, we do so well in the hospitality industry, because as a line cook, as a prep cook, as a chef, as a mixologist, I am serving you and I'm showing you love and appreciation.
Well, and honestly, just from being around you and having tasted your food, even though cooking for a ton of people is very different than cooking for a smaller amount of people, that energy just comes out in you. When you walk out, it's just they say it's like people have like a glow. You have that glow when you're talking about food, when you're talking about that coming from that place of service. And it's a beautiful thing. I almost feel just, and I
have no glow coming from my parents' house.
No, you have a glow. It's called, you're sweating from COVID. That's
after
your glow.
goulash. I'm like,
well, no, it's this, I don't know how to explain it more than it's just like in your blood, and regardless of what you're doing, it just comes out. And I think Megan can attest to that too, in the sense where there's almost like a lack of that right now in the service industry.
Yes.
There's this lack of not only pride, because man, you could be a dishwasher and be proud of how good you are at your job, regardless. Because I think when you carry pride, it's going to translate to every other aspect of your life, because maybe you're washing dishes while you're learning English in this country, and then you're going to move up and you're going to be a line cook and you're going to do this. But if you take pride in what you do, and is that something, because Venezuelans, Megan may not be privy to this, but Venezuelan, not to dive into politics, it's not about the politics, but they have very similar things that have happened in Venezuela that have happened in Cuba. Cubans and Venezuelans connect a lot because there's so many similarities in quote unquote the motherland. Do you think any of that has to do with your pride in what you do?
Absolutely. I think, Venezuelans, we lost our country as the way Cubans have, as we know it. And I think that for me, it has to do with two things. It has to do first with making my family proud, and us being proud to where we come from. And I feel so proud of my abuelitos and my mom. I remember in Miami, and you can relate to this, Eddie, like, it was very hard for us to speak Spanish. Like, our mom spoke Spanish and our grandparents spoke Spanish, but like our generation was weird, right? Like, do we speak Spanish? Do we not? Are we proud?
Yeah.
Was always like, you're gonna speak Spanish. Like, we need to be proud of where we come from. And like, my mom was always very, yo no te entiendo. I don't understand you if you speak English to me. And at first it was because I was a girl in Miami, like speaking, English, and I didn't want to really, deal with speaking Spanish. But like, I'm glad she pushed me to speak Spanish, and that I was able to speak to my abuelos, my grandparents, and not only, she was hard. She was like, you're gonna not only speak, but you're gonna read and write it. And now I'm forever thankful, because you know what? That's taught me to be very proud of who we are and where we come from. And when things started happening in Venezuela 20 something years ago, it was kind of like my parents and my grandparents saying, you know, no matter what happens, we need to be proud of where we come from. And for me, it was kind of obvious because I had a beautiful childhood. And I was very thankful to the childhood that I had and my grandparents and the upbringing they had. My mom was a single mom. My dad died when I was a year old. And my grandparents raised me. And I grew up in a beautiful Latin family full of more than 70 cousins. And that food was a connector for all of us.
They don't have condoms in Venezuela?
70 cousins?
Yeah. That's a lot of cousins.
Yeah, I had a lot of cousins.
It's
I had a lot of
cousins. Family, guys. We're Latinos are loving people. Sorry. I heard 70 cousins. I'm like, I have 3.
No, you know what the funny thing is? You know what the funny thing is like now that I cook and I look back, I don't know how they did it. I don't know how they did it every Sunday, hosting 50 plus guests every Sunday to whoever my uncle's or my aunt's house was. But somehow they made it seem seamless, they made it seem easy, and they made it feel so loving. So I create that. I always, but don't get me wrong, now that I cook, I realize it's very expensive and it's very challenging. Yeah. So, you know, in a way to honor them, you know, it was kind of like making my family really proud and carrying that tradition over. And B, you know, being from Miami, having grown up there and coming then to New York and studying to become a chef here, you know, when you're here, you're Latino, right? You can have an Ecuadorian in the kitchen, Ecuadorian, Honduras, Mexican. We're all Latinos in the kitchen. And unfortunately, because of the circumstances, you know, you become really ashamed kind of that you're working in the kitchen and that you don't really speak English and that you don't have papers. Unfortunately, that's the truth. And my role in kitchens here was kind of carrying that flag of no, we need to be really proud of who we are as Latinos. You know, and honestly, we feed America. Like, come on, like the person who grows your tomatoes, the person who grows your cucumbers, the person who's growing your food, most of them are Latinos. And the person
people
who cooks
picking the
food,
grapes up in Napa.
Yeah,
100%.
Megan and I were in Napa a couple months ago, and yeah, it's
100%.
I'm gonna go live with them. I'm gonna go this fall and pick with them. I'm excited.
And you should. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful, and you should learn about. You know what, Megan? Like really go and see, and go to a family. Go eat pozole with them after the picking grapes, and see the people behind the people who are making your best wine, and picking your tomatoes and your lettuce, because they're beautiful stories. You know, I work with an organization done by Monica Ramirez, the Humans Who Feed Us, that we're trying to bring attention to the humans who feed us, which mainly are Latinos. So for me, it's been like kind of like a 3-part journey of really celebrating Latin American food and culture, not only from my upbringing, but my mom has lived in Mexico for so first of all,
hold on, we lost you for a second. Your mom lived in Mexico for how long?
My mom she currently lives in Mexico, and she lives in Manzanillo, and she's been there more than a decade. And before that, she's lived in Chile, in Buenos Aires. And so it's, for me, it's celebrating, first of all, my heritage, Venezuelan, but also I've been privileged enough to visit her all over Latin America. So I'm very proud of our Latin heritage. But my mom lives in Mexico, and also being here, a Latina in the United States, means celebrating all Latin cultures, you know. And, you know, as you know, Eddie, like being from Miami, you are partly Cuban if you are from Miami, right?
Yeah.
So
I think regardless of wherever you're from, you're like an honorary Cuban if you lived in Miami, even if you don't speak a word of Spanish. You know, we all had like our white friend that would come to, you know, to the birthday party and would be fully embraced into arroz and frijoles and whatever. So yeah, there is something about
caja china. Yeah. Come on.
It's funny because there's a caja china like 7 feet away from me right now in my backyard. Caja china is a roasting box where we do this whole mostly roasting a whole pig in there.
Shocking.
It's yeah, right. It's funny, Grace, that you mentioned, that you talk about this, because it's one of these things that it's hard for any, I don't know if it's any first generation, at least from my experience, and I'm sure you can attest to this, because like my parents went through some shit. So when I'm complaining and I feel like, oh, this is hard, or this is this, or this is that, I and not to give away the date that we're recording this, but in a couple days, I'm flying to Israel. A first time I've ever been to the Middle East, and I'm going to go explore wine in the country. But ironically, the day that I fly to Israel is the same day that my father came from Cuba in 1962. It's the day that my family came from Cuba. And I know the shit that my dad went through, when he got here, or even before he got here. And it's one of those things where, like, every time I'm tired, I'm like, man, can I just get away with feeling tired and feeling fucking like whatever today? No, I can't, because they went through worse shit. So I always feel guilty complaining about anything, because I'm always like, no, I got to honor them. You got to work harder. And I guess growing up in Miami, it's present all the time. You turn on the radio, you turn on the TV, you talk to anybody. It's like you can't get away from it.
Yeah, well, first of all, you're gonna love Israel.
I can't wait.
Yeah, you're gonna love it, and I can't wait for you. That side of the world, and I just came back myself from that side of the world 2 weeks ago, and it's such a fascinating place, where I think it's like, again, it's like the birth of civilization as we know it comes from there, right? Like all major religions. This time I went with Reality, and it's an organization kind of like Young Global Leaders of the World. I went to the Palestine side, I went to the Israel side, and you see a different narrative there once you're there, and that makes you, but also it's like you're saying, it makes you appreciate also our journey and we've been through as immigrant, as child from immigrants, right? And I feel the same way. I think it's like having children. You always feel guilty, right? I don't have children, but all moms feel guilty somehow. And I feel like children of immigrants, we always feel guilty, and we always feel like we have to honor our heritage and our parents and our grandparents.
It's a burden
somehow.
of success. It's a burden of whatever success. Success doesn't mean, whatever, $20 million a year. That's not, but you have this burden of, like bettering whatever it is that you bring to this world in some way. You feel, as a chef, whether you are a doctor, whether you work as an insurance agent, you always feel like you have this burden of honoring and struggle of people before you. It's just weird. I don't know, Megan.
I think that the thing is also, it's like, we don't have a plan B, because we need to make plan A work, because we know what our parents have been through, and we know, and I always talk about that, like, what has been the secret to the success? I was like, the secret has been that I have no plan B, that I need to work really, really hard, and people see my life on Instagram, and they think it's this thing, and the truth is I don't stop working ever. Like,
no, we never stop working.
I am just hustling all the time, and I want people to know that, like, I have a beautiful intern, Diabelas, and she's been wonderful to me this semester, and she goes, if I used to follow you on Instagram, I never thought like you work this hard, and I do. I'm working all the time.
Well, because people, it's the same thing as when people will talk to me on Instagram and say, hey, they'll meet me in person, then it'll be like, oh my God, I would expect you to weigh 400 pounds with what you eat. I'm like, dude, I posted one picture in 3 weeks. So if I only ate that one meal in 3 weeks, I would look Ethiopian. You know what I mean? Like, there's this like kind of disconnect that people have, I think, when it comes to social media. Megan, I know that, like, one thing I love about Megan is that Megan is like a sponge. Megan is this person who will embrace culture want to learn about people. What, and I just want to ask her because I mean, she's being like bombarded by two Latinos here from Miami. Is there, you know, what has been the biggest culture shock for you in a good way? Having left Colorado, moving to LA, and being around so many Latinos that maybe you just weren't accustomed to. I know you said you went to the family dinner where they were building your burger, and that would have never happened in your house. But that's just because your parents are drunk on Fireball. But what's something culturally that maybe is connected with you? Because I'm really curious of your perspective, because I can't see the world through your eyes in that way.
Well, don't forget, in Colorado, where I lived, I was the minority as well. So the school I taught at was, I think, 68% Hispanic. So I was one of the few white people at the school. So I did know their families, and I did participate in like their after school stuff, where we did the, what do you call it, the bingos and there's a name for that. Anyway, we would do, I wasn't, yes,
Loteria?
yes, the
Yeah,
loteria.
okay.
Is that how you say it?
Yeah, loteria is like Mexican bingo.
Mexican bingo. No, we would do stuff, and we really, back in my last year, we started a whole group that was focused on including all the culture that we weren't including, you know, the big thing that we made a change on, and we had a spokesperson about it that advocated for it, was, you know, when we sent newsletters home for years, you didn't get newsletters in Spanish. So parents weren't able to participate in events because they didn't know what the newsletter said. So now we were required to make sure we have Spanish and English sent out in every email and everything we sent home. And then we had more access.
Thank you for doing that.
We had more access to people who would translate, because if a kid's acting up and you're telling their parent who speaks no English, your kid's an asshole. The kid's just going to their parent and being like, oh, she says I'm doing great. So we had more teachers come in and start translating. So that wasn't a huge shock. I think what I'm always going to be shocked about is the bond and the family bonds that you guys all have, and how inclusive it all is. I think just coming from a German white family, I can't get away from my family. Like, I can't get far enough away from my family. And it feels like everyone loves to be around their family. It doesn't mean I don't love them. I think that's just a huge difference. Like, we don't bond like that, you know?
It's funny that you mentioned that, Megan, because a little light bulb is going off in my head, because, you know, Megan's been over to my house a lot. And I treat Megan like family. Like, I embrace her when she comes here. Here's everybody. Like, and Megan is
I'm so distant,
uncomfortable. It's sorry, great. If you saw her walk into my house, like, people be like, she's like, oh my God, they're gonna love me. I'm gonna run away. You know.
Feels weird.
But you know what, Megan? I think that you brought up. First of all, thank you for doing that and acknowledging that, because I think that what you exactly saying was my role, and I think that also have to honor my folks. To the key of my success in New York Kitchens was I was a person translating from my prep and my line cooks into my executive chef, right? So the executive chef would be like, tell them that go F themselves, and what's a horrible job. And I was like, what he's really saying is, so I would like translate the soft version of it.
Yes.
And my line cooks and breakfast, because of the tone, they will be like, he's not saying that, Grace, tell me the truth. And I was like, well, he's saying that in a very mean way, but you don't need to know that. So I would soften it up, and I would be that person who would translate. And I was 100% the buffer. And it was I wanted them to feel special. I wanted them to feel loved and appreciated for the work that they were doing. And I think that, you know, back then, it was a very different era for the kitchens in New York. You know, it was accepted and celebrated to be treated like crap. Now that's no longer tolerated. And I'm very grateful for that shift in our industry, that we were able to it's no longer cool to treat people like crap. And back then it was cool to treat people like crap. And that to me was not okay. Because we're humans and we deserve to be treated fairly and compensated fairly,
with
and
respect.
and with respect, and I'm glad that has changed. But then the second thing that you're mentioning, the person who is my right hand in a lot of the crazy things I do, Chef Melissa Tung, and she's wonderful, but she's, her family is Chinese American, and she feels so uncomfortable, and it's like watching you, she cringes, and I try to hug her, and she's always like, I can with you guys.
Try to give Megan a hug if you ever meet her. I should just let me record it ahead of time.
Yeah, and I understand, because Melissa's the same way, and the funny thing is, I just took her to Mexico for the first time, because we're doing a project there, and she couldn't believe it. She's like, this is una melcocha. She said it in English, like, this is too much for me. Like, this is so sweet. Everyone wants to hug me. Everyone wants to show me love. Everyone wants to like take me into their family, and I just can't handle it. And
it's overwhelming.
It is overwhelming. It is overwhelming. So I understand, and I'm always trying to be very mindful of that, but that is a thing. And she has a really funny anecdote that I want to share. So we went to Plaza Garibaldi, which is like the mariachi plaza in Mexico City, because I love mariachis, and if
with
I
a
die,
good Italian name.
Yeah, Plaza Garibaldi, and I want to be dressed as a mariachi if I pass, and I because to me, a mariachi equals fun, celebratory occasion, and I take her there, and we go into this, cantina where they're singing, Juan Gabriel, of course, and if you don't know Juan Gabriel, you have to right now do whatever you have to do in a browser, and you have to know who Juan Gabriel is.
Yeah.
And
close out your porn.
She said, I can't believe that in this cantina, it was like the grandmother with the oxygen walking in with a baby, walking in with the mom and the dad and 5 cousins, and like that was the environment of Plaza Garibaldi. Like, and that is part of the beauty of the Latin culture. You take your grandparents and your elders everywhere. You take them everywhere, and you celebrate with them. And I remember, like, I would, and I still support, a lot of my family, and like, you are like a tribe. You go with your grandmother, your grandfather, and your cousins, and whoever else you can afford to bring.
Yeah.
Right. That's.
Yeah. I always joke. The guy I'm kind of seeing, I do make jokes about it. Is just like, he's like, oh my, every freaking story starts with, oh, my cousin showed me. Oh, my cousin showed me. Oh, my cousin showed me. I was like, which one, bro?
Well, does he have 70 of them like Grace? Or does he have 6 of them that you can probably like?
I don't know. I assumed it was like 30 plus.
You need a chart. You need like a cousin chart. Like
I need a family thing. If you're dating a white girl, you need to plan it out for us so we can understand what's happening.
You would never understand it. Just embrace it.
It's an ancestry.com for white chicks dating Latin guys. So you just like put your whole family tree into an app, and then let your white girlfriend log into the app so that she can figure out, this is Julio, this is Joaquin. Joaquin used to fuck this person, but they're no longer together. They have a baby. Like, you need all of that into one app.
I do.
Business opportunity right here. You
but
can't steal it.
His mother was very, very sweet, and the whole family was very, very sweet and inclusive. And it was, they didn't leave me alone for a second, which isn't, when you go to a lot of my culture's houses, like you can be sitting alone on your phone for like an hour and like not talk to anybody, and no one would notice. So it's just, there was no time for that. It's very sweet.
I have a Cuban friend who he's been to our mutual friend's home, or our mutual friend's parents' home up in the Midwest. And he's like, dude, he's from Miami, like me. And he's like, dude, it's the weirdest thing, because you go, the parents like greet you, they bring you into like a study, they give you like one drink, so they pour you a glass of wine, they have it all timed out, you drink and you talk shit for like 30 minutes, then they open the doors, the food is like ready in the kitchen, you sit down, you eat, you don't talk, and then they kick you the fuck out of the house. And he was like, I'm so confused. I was like, it was lovely, everybody was lovely, it's just like, he's like, I'm so confused. I don't know, why are people leaving? Why are people not like talking in the driveway for an additional hour? Because
it's either that or we're getting drunk.
We never left. We're like, oh, we're gonna leave now. You get to the car in the driveway, and my dad would have another 1 hour conversation with my it was that was it. So I get you, Megan, and I'm trying to break the egg open. I'm gonna crack the shell, Megan. I promise you. I will. She's like, you will never. I will be a cold German with COVID.
I will embrace my German culture.
Grace, what is any job? What is the worst job you ever had?
Oh yeah.
I two jobs that I've had that were horrible. So I loved working in Nickelodeon. Obviously, I was a producer there, and I've met some of the greatest people and mentors that I have met in my lifetime. But one time, the person that was supposed to be inside, and I feel like a lot of people have this story, but like when you have this story, you wanna acknowledge the story, because I needed to be inside a Rugrat custom. And if you don't know who a Rugrat is, it's like a Mickey Mouse custom.
Before SpongeBob.
Exactly. Yeah. So like and there was a promo that needed to be filmed in the middle of Flamingo Park in the summer, over 100 and something degrees, and I needed to be inside this custom running, like because it was a Rugrat marathon. So literally they brought the customs and we needed to run inside this customs. So, the person that was supposed to be inside one of the Rugrats didn't show up. So of course they put the production assistant, me, and I needed to run inside this custom, and I nearly fainted, and then I vomited because it was so hot and I was dehydrated, and it was one of those things that I was like, wow, okay, I am running inside a Rugrat custom, and it was funny because I'm very late in the game, but I just saw Succession season 1, episode 1.
I'm still in the middle of it. Don't feel late.
Good.
Yeah, no, I'm still in the middle of season 1.
Nice and cold, Megan, like your family. It's perfect.
I know. It reminds me of them. Just less money.
But in that episode 1, season 1, he is inside this custom, one of the characters, and he starts vomiting from the eyes. And that was basically me inside this Rugrat custom. But I wasn't on any drugs. I wasn't anything. I was just completely dehydrated and almost like fainting from the heat of this custom. I think that's been really the worst one. And then, I have to say, like I said, back in the days working in a New York kitchen, when I started culinary school 15 years ago, it was very, very, very rough. You were making minimum wage and working, 12, 14-hour days. And, every part of your human body will hurt, even parts that you didn't know existed hurt.
Oh yeah.
And I think the kitchen has taught me a lot of humility and humbleness of working in a line for that amount of hours. And they're, most of New York kitchens are like on a little dungeon, or they're very small and they're very hot, and you feel like you're about to faint and die any minute. So yeah.
From personal experience, I always like to ask people, and it's funny because I think you're the first person I've ever thought to ask this on the show, but in my personal life, I always ask people this. And, when you have your worst job, your worst experience in that world, and it's funny that I've never asked somebody this on the show, but you're going to be the first. What did you learn from it? Because I think that in every opportunity in our worst jobs, I've had, I can directly connect what I do now for a living to some of the worst experiences I ever had, but I learned from it. What did you take from it that you still use today that helped you?
First of all, I think that humbleness and humility of understanding what people who serve, as chefs, as cooks, as mixologists, etc., go through. So the level of appreciation that I have for people behind the bar, behind the line, is no joke. Like, I get treated to a lot of places, and I am known for carrying cash and living a big tip, no matter if I'm comped or not, because I understand that you were serving me I understand what that entails, and I think that having that under my belt has really carried me through of all the work that I do with World Central Kitchen, for the work with the community, and it was essential to what I did with the COVID New York initiative. I was helping supervise 100,000 meals a day and helping save over 250 restaurants from closing. And it was a level of dedication and passion for my community that helped me do that. Because I understood, first of all, I understood very well that you have to understand, like, people, let's say Pepito Perez was passing from COVID, and their family couldn't know that who Pepito Perez was because his paper said Juan Valdez, but he was really Pepito Perez. And this is a reality we face in this country, either you like it or not. A lot of our workers that work in our community and in our industry are undocumented, so they have fake papers, and there was no way to tell their families that that person passed because we really didn't know who he was. Wow. So imagine, like, and I had a firsthand understanding of that when I was working. I was one of the lucky few who was born in this country and had papers to work here. But it's something that people don't talk about and that we're not proud of, but it is the reality. And you know what? If it wasn't for our immigrant workers in this country, America could not be fed, period. And we don't talk about this enough, and we need to raise awareness of this issue because there's so many issues around this topic. And if it wasn't for immigrant workers, you could not eat or drink in this country, period.
Did you say you were doing a project about where food comes from? What was that? What you're saying?
The humans who feed us. Yeah, it's about raising awareness about the humans who feed us.
And what does that specifically entail? What's happening with that?
It is. So it's Monica Ramirez is an amazing activist raising awareness to as you're gonna go see, Megan, when you're picking grapes, when you're picking tomatoes, when you're picking asparagus, a lot of the times it's very hot and the conditions are very poor. So we're raising awareness to have better conditions for these workers. And a lot of these workers, depending on where we are, so we are trying to also, make different laws so people can come and go from Mexico legally and have a work permit just to pick your grapes, just to pick our asparagus and to pick our tomatoes. So it's a work permit based on the season, so you can come and go as you please, so people don't have to remain here illegally. So it has to do with a lot of changing different laws to have better treatment for these people.
I smell a TV show happening. Well, you bring this white girl to all these places and show me how it's all done and see how I venture in it.
Well, they're
going to have like 50 barrels of grapes and I'm going to have one by the end of the day.
But the thing is, like, when I was still in the acting world in the mid 2000s, there was a film that came out and it was called A Day Without a Mexican. And it portrayed a day in Los Angeles if every single Mexican person who worked in landscaping, restaurants, was not there. And it's kind of a parody, but it's a perspective on life, read between the lines there. And it parallels a lot of what you're talking about. And it's not a great movie, but it had a bit of success in that independent film world because it really showed what Los Angeles would look like if one day every undocumented Mexican person just disappeared. All of a sudden, you're at the restaurant, and it's the person at the restaurant, and nobody's picking up their dishes. Nobody's, and I think that's where. I think where social media gives us this insight, let's say, or what we think is insight, like you were talking about, people think your life is a certain thing. But it doesn't give people perspective. It doesn't give people this reality of perspective. And when you get on the ground floor, like you said, with Jose Andres, you were in Rwanda, you were in, like, you have a different perspective. Like, I'm going to have a different perspective when I go to Israel in a couple of days, different than what I see on the news. And I'm just really proud of what you're doing, because it's shedding light on different perspectives. That's all I'm saying right now. I'm really proud of it, because it makes me happy to see, and everybody has a perspective. So there's two sides to every story. Make sure you learn both before you make a judgment call. That's the fairest thing to do, is learn both sides to a story and figure out which one you agree with.
And you would see, and I think that's been kind of like my little side job, bringing different perspectives into different things, and our industry has suffered a lot, with this pandemic, and we lost so many people to COVID, and our industry is struggling, and it is very challenging times. And I don't think people realize the amount of people we lost and what we're going through, in terms of the whole supply chain, because I think that's the thing, like, you don't think about the whole supply chain, and with people who plant the seed, your crops, who deliver it, and then who serve it, and it's such a domino effect that we're not even aware of, that has suffered tremendously during the past 2 years. And I feel just very grateful and honored to have had this virus very early on, and to have been of service to the community for the past 2 years. Now I'm off to doing other things. I am going to.
What are you off to? That's next. Tell us everything.
It's very exciting. I'm launching a La Cocina Latina, Chef Grace Ramirez concept inside universities across the country. Because again, I think that education for me is key. And this is something that kids, we need to realize as Latinos that we're one of our biggest minorities, and kids were demanding in schools, in universities across the country, Latin flair. And I developed, along with Aramark, a La Cocina Latina Chef Grace Ramirez concept that is now living in 7 universities across the country, and they're doing extremely well. And hopefully we'll take it to many other universities, because I do think that education is the key to change things. So little by little, I'm trying to get into the educational space so kids can understand the relationship between the food that they're seeing grown in an edible garden right outside their schools and what they're eating. Because when you see how food is grown, harvested, and cooked, it changes your perspective around it, and it changes a lot of things. So I'm trying. My goal is to, I always say, I want to bring back the home economic program in a more holistic way, so kids can have more an understanding.
Do you know who you're talking to?
That was my teacher.
I was a home economics teacher until 2 years ago during the pandemic. That's what I taught, and we did that. And I would tell them, I would get mad at them, like when we made food and they made a face, if they were just like, ew, I was like, and I would go on it. I would say, do you know what it took for someone to pay to get this, to get it here to you, to deliver it? And that's, so I totally would get on their case about it. And we wouldn't just do like sweets and baking, like we would do meals, and I'd actually have them do a full restaurant at the end of the semester in groups of 4, where they came up with a menu and they served their parents. So yeah, of course it needs to come back. California got rid of it. I can't get a job out here.
Yeah. You know what I think it's essential, Megan? Like, also, it's for kids to bring the edible gardens back, because when a kid sees that strawberry took that amount of time to cook, to grow, not to cook, to grow, kids have a different appreciation for it. They're like, oh, it took a whole semester to grow that, or I needed to nurture it, I need to love it. So, I did that in New Zealand, where I worked with the Garden to Table program there, and I saw kids eating more lettuce and more vegetables than anyone I've ever seen. They were appreciating the whole process of it. So that's one of my little side project / goal. So yes, I'm working with Aramark. I work with the UN
now you know
a
home economics teacher.
Perfect.
So if you need anything.
I'm doing a bunch of dinners for the UN under the Chef's Manifesto, where we're raising awareness about this Act Now campaign and the Chef's Manifesto, that it's like a little toolkit for chefs to have about questioning themselves, about where their food comes from, what's sustainable and whatnot. And yeah, you know, Eddie knows this. I never stop working. You know, I'm the worldwide ambassador, very proudly so, of Zacapa rum. It's a rum that I love, not only because I love the spirit, but I love Lorena Vasquez and what she does, our master blender. And I feel so honored to be working with her for so many years. And yeah, I think that, and then we're going to launch an incubator program for women here in New York, where we're going to teach women how to cook. And that's another little exciting project. But I think that for me, the past 2 years has been really about trying to help as many restaurants as they can from closing under Chef Jose Andres and World Center Kitchen. What they do is phenomenal. And I also help Israel. This is why, Eddie, Israel is right now very much in Ukraine and in Poland, and they deal a lot with mental healthness, and what they do is also remarkable, the work that they do, and I celebrate them a lot. They're also still in Colombia helping Venezuelan refugees. So that's what keeps me going. You know, all this activist and humanitarian work is what makes my day-to-day easier.
You know, and speaking of what keeps her going, guys, if you want to, you know, connect with Chef Grace and her story, I strongly encourage you to follow her on social media at Chef Grace Ramirez. Ramirez is with one R, even though I'm rolling my R's. It's with one. It's Chef Grace Ramirez. And you know, follow along. She as much fun as she has, because, you know, it is social media. We got to have fun. There's always a message, and there's always something up. There's always a positive message, and nothing but encouragement and inclusion. And I love talking to people, because it's relevant to me, who started out in one career and pivoted, and, you know, and something shifted in your life. And here you were, you know, thinking you were going to take the world by storm in television. You are in television in a different way, but taking the world by storm as a television producer / director, you know, what you were doing, and a catalyst, something struck a fire in you, and you shifted, and you were courageous, and here you are. So people at home, that moment when you doubt yourself, when you feel like, I'm too old to shift, I'm too involved in medical school, but I want to do this, whatever that is for you, inspiration and love is what's going to take you there. Because if you're not inspired or in love with what you're doing, and you're inspired and in love with something you want to be doing, chances are you're doing the wrong thing. Chef,
and not giving up. Show. You can't give up.
No,
that's something
don't
that
have a plan B.
Don't have a plan B, because that is something that I tell everyone I mentor. You know, the amount of no's I've received in my life, the amount of doors that have been shut in my face are endless. Every day I'm getting 75 doors shut in my face.
Well, yeah, I mean,
but one door opens always if you keep working hard enough.
Well, I always use the analogy of baseball, because I played baseball. Hello, I'm Cuban. I played baseball since I was a little kid. And in baseball, if you were successful 3 out of 10 times, you were in the Hall of Fame. If you bat 300, if you hit 30% of the time, you were in the Hall of Fame. In life, if you bat 100, you could be Bill Gates. You could be the most, you know, one of the most successful people in the world. And I mean, you know, if you give it up to the Supreme Court, chances are you won't have a plan B in a few months. But that's just another joke on the other side of fuck the Supreme Court right now. Anyway, I just had to put it out there because
thank you guys.
So we end every show the same way, from the bottom of our hearts, Grace. The only thing we don't get back in life is time. And sincerely, Megan and I want to thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with us here on Kill the Bottle podcast.
Megan, please feel better and drink a lot of tea, lemon, ginger, honey tea, and maybe some
water,
maybe some
and some booze.
Yeah, you'll have amazingly interesting breath. So Chef, where can folks find you? I know they can find you on Chef Grace Ramirez on social. They can find you on www.chefgraceramirez.com. Where else besides in the like stairwell of the Soho House? Where can they find you?
In New York, and then 7 universities across the country. No, I think that honestly, I am that crazy person that wakes up at 4 a.m. and tries to read every single Instagram message that people send me. So the best way to reach me is at Chef Grace Ramirez. I would promise you, I would try to get back at you at some point. Sometimes it's a little bit overwhelming, but I try to get through every single message, and that is a platform that I have a lot of fun with. Like you said, it's my alter ego. I had to learn to love it and create this little persona, but there is a little piece of me there, 100%.
And it's really transparent that it's there, and we're so proud of you. And folks, if
Thank you guys
love what we're doing here at Kill the Bottle Podcast, it means the world to us. If you like, subscribe, write a nice little review. I mean, write any review. If you don't like the show, fuck it, write that too. But we live, you know what? My parents lived in a country, and so did Grace, where you couldn't express yourself. So if your expression is you don't like the show, that's fine. Take advantage that you have a platform where you can express yourself. Whatever you like, whatever you don't like, let us know. Send us emails. Grace, you have an open door policy here on the show. We would love to have you back at some point.
Yes, I will. I love it. I'm so excited. I know. Yay.
At being able to chat with you. But sincerely, I am honored. And tienes un amiguito aquí from 305 living in LA.
Thank you. I love you guys. Thank you so much for having me. Much, much love from the staircase in New York City.
And we will see everybody next week.
Ciao.